Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Today, we're playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the newest Call of Duty video game. I wasn't really planning on picking this up. Call of Duty has been last few years. But a lot of positive reviews for this one, especially talking about the campaign. There was a lot of praise for the campaign, so I bought it. And I just finished the campaign, and it was really good. It was really slick. I'd love to see make a Modern Warfare movie using like your cinematic graphics you've got here. It would be cool. I think it would be cool. But it was a fun campaign. I have not touched the multiplayer at all until right now. We're going to do our first few games live. Well, I'm talking about role-playing and horror movies. So we'll see how it all goes. Just, I don't know. Let's just dive into a ground war. So, got plenty to talk about today, of course. Once again, I'll save horror movie discussion for the end of the stream. It's really the last. Well, I don't know if this is the last time I'll be talking about horror movies because I want to keep going down that list of hidden horror gems even past October, so I might still continue to talk about them. But first, yesterday I went to a hip-hop concert.
Enemy at Echo. Go.
I think the whole sound might be a little loud.
Airstrike inbound.
I'm gonna take off my headphones. I don't really need to drown myself out.
Be advised. Enemy personal radar.
So yeah, I went to a hip-hop concert.
Securing Delta.
Not
Enemy
a
cruise missile incoming. We lost Echo. We've got Bravo.
not a general hip-hop concert. It was specifically for Immortal Technique, one of my favorite hip-hop artists slash rappers.
Be advised. Friendly UAV on.
And it's really one of like the last artists I thought I would actually see in concert
Stand by.
for multiple reasons. One is because he hasn't put out new music in like a decade. So I don't know how many really concerts he ever puts on. I have no idea.
Got Delta.
And two, not really any of my friends are much into rap. Especially like
Friendly UAV
Not-
on station.
mainstream rap, I suppose.
Friendly care package inbound.
So when I heard he was coming to town, when he was coming to town,
Need backup at Delta. Enemy UAV online.
I
Friendly care package
jokingly mentioned if any. I asked if anyone wanted to go.
Losing A. We lost Delta. Securing Echo. Beacon Bravo.
I didn't really expect anyone to say anything. But Ziggy and his wife, good friends as they are, said that if I paid for the tickets, they would go with. And so I paid for the tickets,
Allied cruise missile on
and
the
they
way.
went with.
We're on guard. Stand by. Lost A. Lost Bravo. UAV on station. Capture Charlie. Enemy UAV online. Friendly UAV on station.
So we,
Allied cruise missile on the way. Be advised.
you know, this was in Milwaukee.
Delta secure.
It was a hip hop concert. We were all a little unsure if things were gonna get rowdy, but we went down there, had dinner at this barbecue place. It was pretty decent. And I didn't know what to expect. I've actually never gone to like an actual concert. I've gone to Summerfest where there's just bands are playing and you can walk by and just walk up, and but actually buying tickets specifically for a concert, I've never done that. So I didn't know what to expect from this, and it was way smaller than I thought it would be. It was just like this little theater. It was extremely intimate. There were seats for maybe 100 seats, not even, probably more like 80. And then there was a small little like dance floor, basically, and then there was this little stage that's smaller than like my grade school stage. So really small. So I was like, I don't know, maybe 20 feet from the stage where we were sitting. And it's like, if you're seeing someone perform, some random little like rock band or whatever, from local whatever, it's like, okay, well, there they are, whatever. But when you're actually seeing like an artist that you've been listening to for like, however many years, and there they are 20 feet away in this small little venue, it's really cool. It was really cool. But I'm skipping ahead. So they were doing security checks in this little room when we walked in, and they had like the scanner. They were patting some people down, and I'll be real honest, this is not me being racist. This is they were only patting down the black people. I swear to God, like, they weren't being subtle about it. It was completely just discriminatory, just only patting down the black people. White men got scanned, and white females didn't get anything. They just waved them through. It was crazy. Like, try to have a basic showing of equality here. But anyways, it's funny because everywhere I go, I carry a knife with me in my pocket. I've done it for like at least a decade, probably long, 15 years. I've always just had a knife on me. I did the martial arts training thing throughout my childhood and stuff. I know about self-defense, and I'd rather have a knife and not need it than need it and not have it, I guess, if it ever came down to something. Not that it ever has, but it's just, it's just a comfort thing, I guess. I like having a knife. It's also useful if you ever need to cut anything. you need to cut open a package. Just handy. Oh, there's a knife.
Captured Bravo. Taking Alpha. Enemy UAV online. Enemy has Delta.
But they were scanning and checking for weapons, of course, which includes knives. And I was worried that they would confiscate my knife, or, you know, who knows what they can do with my knife. I mean, probably if they saw it, they would just tell me to leave it there and I can pick it up afterwards, I would hope. But it's like, I don't want that. That's the whole point. That's why I brought it.
1-1 on approach, ready for capture. What's your position?
And, dude, this can't even see where this person is. Oh, he's all the way on the roof. Okay. What a perfect sniping position. I'm never gonna. No way. Jeez. So I needed to sneak a knife in. I needed to sneak a knife past security. And my first thought was like the back pocket, but it's like, I mean, the scanner goes right past that. If it can't scan the back pocket, it's pretty useless. So I was like, that's gonna get caught right away. It's no go.
Enemy precision airstrike inbound. Assist your team at need.
So that was out. Ziggy suggested putting it in my shoe, but the knife is a little wide. It really wouldn't fit anywhere in my shoe.
Securing Delta.
And it would be, I mean, it was a small little room. Someone probably would have seen me slipping this knife in my shoe. That would be bad. Then I thought, well, what about like my hood of my hoodie? I could, you know, and I'm not wearing the hood. Just plop it in there. That might not get scanned. But if it does, then it really looks like I'm desperately trying to sneak a knife into this little concert. That's not good.
Enemy UAV online.
So in the end, all I did was just...
Stand up. We're down but not out. Let's go. Friendly UAV on station.
I like slipped it between the folds of my wallet.
We're taking Bravo.
Because they were asking people to empty their pockets before they got scanned. So, I mean, then if he sees the knife somehow tucked in there, I could just say, oh, you know, in my pocket. If not, well, then that's that. And that's exactly what happened. I pulled it out, he scanned me, and then he's like, all right, go ahead. And that's how I slipped a weapon into a small concert. I didn't need it. It never came out, but there you go. That's how easy it is. So yeah, the event, the doors opened, and it was pouring outside, so it was really lame. They wouldn't even let us into the building until 7 o'clock. Immortal Technique came on stage at, I would say, shortly after 10, I think, give or take. So, yeah, there was waiting around, and then there was a bunch of other performances. So a couple of the performances were associated specifically with Immortal Technique. They were on the tour with him, I guess. So that was Chino XL and I don't even remember the name of the other guy. Poison Pen? That sounds... Yeah, Poison Pen. I mean, these are pretty small-time artists. as far as like listener, like if you just look at like listeners on Spotify. Chino XL is a little slightly more well known. It's possible I've heard of him before. But yeah, I mean, people are there to see Immortal Technique. The first couple acts.
Team deathmatch.
The first guy was a white rapper who was actually sort of decent. I mean, it wasn't like great, but if one of his songs just came up on Spotify, I wouldn't turn it off. So that's pretty good. Second band was like a rap rock group, I guess. I don't know. The rock portion was good, the instruments, but the vocals were like when I try to rap, you know.
Fight harder.
Chino XL was decent. And Chino XL actually dropped the only mention of Trump throughout the entire night. I thought there would be all sorts of just bombshell disses about Trump in the White House. But he dropped the only mention about Trump. It was pretty drastic. He talked about Trump's like severed head hanging from his windshield or something like that. But no, Immortal Technique never mentioned him. He mentioned George Bush like twice, just because those are lyrics to his songs. Anyways,
Enemy UAV online.
so yeah, it was getting a little long in the tooth by around 10 o'clock.
Online.
Just like, where the hell is Technique?
Enemy UAV
But finally, the man himself takes the stage. And it was just fantastic, man. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like a perfect concert or anything like that. The music was too loud for the vocals, and I think he acknowledged that multiple times. You know, he's very lyrically focused, and he really wants you to be able to hear the lyrics. And when you can't, that's like, what's the point? I'm not here to hear some sick bass beat for 3 hours. I'm here to hear boss lyrics. So it wasn't perfect. You know, he also had Chino XL and Poison Pen like along with him on stage.
Enemy UAV online.
And they sort of would accompany him on some of the songs, which I didn't love, but aside from that, it really was a fantastic experience.
Down. Enemy infantry.
I mean, I'm sure I'm not the biggest Immortal Technique fan in the world, but he is probably one of my favorite hip-hop artists. And he's very unique. And he performed practically every song I'd want to hear him perform. And he made some little speeches that were right in tune with what I'd expect from Immortal Technique, and it was just good. It was just good, and it was, like I said, it's so cool to just be 20 feet away from him. I guess the only other complaint is, like, he's got some songs that are meant to be a bit slower and less hype. Like Leaving the Past. He did Leave in the Past, but everything was meant to be like really over the top and hype and loud and bassy. And
UAV on station.
so turning Leaving the Past into that was sort of weird, but yeah, overall it was an awesome experience. There was like 80% of the people there were white, which is not what I expected. But I wonder how common that is for rap concerts. So it was great. It was great. For a concert I never expected in my life to be able to go to. It was really awesome. So yeah, that was that. I finally got home like at 12:15. Really late. But it was a night I won't forget.
Reloading.
Bullshit. And really big props to Ziggy and his wife for joining me. That was not their style of music, I'm sure, at all. But I really would not have gone by myself, so. I have a shotgun or something. No, apparently not. I have an AK.
Enemy at the cafe.
Anyways, moving on.
You fought hard out there. Rest up. We'll hit them again.
So this week on this channel, we started up 2 new Let's Plays, as I was debating between Disco Elysium and The Outer Worlds, and I decided to just do both, which I think is a good idea. So far, they're both really entertaining, and I think they're both making for some decent Let's Plays. So, good stuff. Those are going to continue for a little while. Not much else to really say about that. Yeah, those are going to keep going. This week on the Exploring series, I released a video on, I'm going to say, the end of death. Pretty sure. Because the guy at Qdoba, when we went on Monday, talked to me about the end of death. So I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So yeah, that video did pretty well. People seem to really like that. But the Zodiac Killer has still just been blowing up. Okay. We should be back. I don't know where we got cut off. And I don't know, that's never happened before. What happens? Possibly related to the video drivers? I don't know why that would be. Well, anyways, I guess I'll keep going. That's the problem with streaming to like no viewers, is I don't have any feedback about anything going on with the stream. Where was I? Oh yeah, the Zodiac Killer. Right, so that is at 274,000 views. It's insane. I mean, it's insane for a history video. Very few of my history videos have anything like that, except for like vampire. No, that's mythology. So yeah, for history, that's already just blown away everything. The biggest history video before that was Kowloon Walled City at 55,000. I don't know why people are so fascinated with Zodiac Killer, but you know, for mythology, we have vampires at 119, dragons at 203, and werewolves at 500,000. So mythology is a little better. Right. So that's been going pretty strong. Probably still going pretty strong. I don't think I can look on my phone. Yeah, I mean, it's still my most viewed video, like in the last hour, by quite a large margin. People are loving that. Good, because I thought nobody would watch it, and it was just for my own education. But it's nice to make money off something. I also released a audiobook of Haunter of the Dark, which I was not happy with because I had recorded it. I recorded like half of it in April and half of it now, and I've changed my sort of audio setup a little bit since then, so it doesn't quite match up with like the compression and the volume, like it, and I'm not good enough to be able to match it up later in editing. So I don't think it sounds too equal, and I had some other problems with it, but I don't remember. I wasn't very happy with it, but people seem to enjoy it and they want more. And I mean, doing audiobooks is really like the easiest thing I can do. Okay, it definitely seems to be a problem with Modern Warfare. I don't know if it's specifically streaming or record. I don't know, but I'm not gonna. We'll just sit here and talk, I guess. I got enough to say. I mean, you saw some Modern Warfare, I assume. I don't know what this stream's even gonna look like. And then this week I worked on a video on 3 Portlands, which is, yeah, I really wonder how that's going to be received. I'm always still of the mindset, I guess, that SCP is just the base. It's horror. The base of SCP is horror, and anything that skews off of that is just sort of on the fringe. I mean, the base of SCP really could probably just be like memes. But I always consider it to be horror. So 3 Portlands, especially the video that I put out there, is really not anything horror whatsoever, and is really closer to just like fantasy. It's almost more just like cyberpunk fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, or sci fantasy. it's basically this just like extra dimensional world hidden from the rest of Earth, accessible through magical portals, and there's all sorts of strange humans and creatures and talking animals and stuff that live there, and they do all their weird anomalous stuff there, free from any persecution. And there's also cyborgs, and there's paratechnology companies that make androids, and they just seclude themselves away in this little hidden world. I like it. I mean, because like if you take out the whole SCP concept, it's just like, okay, it's cool. It's like Shadowrun or something like that. Or it's sort of like Sigil from Planescape. It's just like this hub world where some people visit because there's you can only get certain things, supplies or services or whatever from this anomalous world. And there's a bunch of weird creatures and stuff that live there and just live out their weird lives, and it's just, I find it interesting. You could easily have like a little RPG campaign there or something. I mean, if I did my like Delta Green SCP campaign more, you could easily have multiple sessions of like going into 3 Portlands and messing around in there for a while. It's cool, but it's just like it really practically doesn't involve the SCP Foundation at all. I mean, they're really not even almost welcome there. So I'm really curious to see how people are gonna take to it. So we'll see. It gave me, I just used a whole slew of like cyberpunk city artwork, which 3 Portlands is not that populated. It's not that super advanced or anything like that, but you try Googling 3 Portlands artwork, you're not going to find a whole lot. Thus is, that's my job. So we'll see how people react. Then I think next week is, oh boy, SCP-3201, which is not an incredibly, yeah, actually it might turn out to be decently lengthy, I suppose. It's an interesting little SCP. It's rated decently high. It'll probably be a fun video. I won't go into too many details. It's sort of about like the nature of the Foundation and how it's more expansive than commonly thought of. An alternative like origin of the Foundation, I suppose. Extraterrestrial in nature. Yeah, so I guess that's all there is to say about that. Oh, and then there's my final October video for 2019, which is on the man who killed Halloween, or the Candyman. He has a real name, but the way I'm presenting the video, I want it to be a bit of a surprise. If I put the guy's name in the title, it sort of ruins the surprise a little bit. And if I put Candyman in there, people will think of the movie or something. So I like The Man Who Killed Halloween. I think that's a good title. And I'll be releasing it on Halloween. So that's pretty cool. It's a historical video. It's about a case of child poisoning around Halloween from 1970 or 74. 1974. So it's probably not going to be an incredibly long video, but I think it's a wild story, and some people will probably be interested. Morbidly, of course. All right, moving on then. Board games. We actually did have. I have something to say about board games. Rare as it is. We had Spooky Board Game Night, which is an annual event we do every year at Ziggy's house. We get together, whatever people we can, and we play spooky or horror themed board games. Sort of changes every year. This year was our smallest year yet. We only had 4 of us. We played Escape the Dark Castle, which is a game Ziggy owns. Pretty interesting, cool little light dice game, I suppose you'd call it. In which you're trying to escape this castle, and it's basically like sort of a... I mean, the story is you're escaping the castle, but really, you could just as easily think that you're going into the castle. It's basically like a dungeon crawl, presented through a whole slew of narrative cards, and there's different like traps and events that occur. There's items to pick up, monsters all around, and you have to roll dice to match symbols to beat some monsters. And there's the big bad boss monster at the end that you can hopefully kill. And we did. We succeeded. We won. It was just a cool little game. It's one of those things where I would never, I would never buy it. I would never own it because it's like, I'm gonna play this on a random. It's just whatever. I would never. I mean, I don't buy almost any board games nowadays, anyways. But once a year, Spooky Board Game Night, sure, whip it out. I'll play it. I'll enjoy it. Then we moved on to the main event, which was Eldritch Horror, which we play pretty rarely nowadays, and it's just so massive and time-consuming to set up and take down. It's an enjoyable game. We did end up winning against Nefren Ka. We solved 3 mysteries. It was pretty cool. But yeah, that setup and takedown is just... Playing on tabletop, that's like the one game that's so much better on Tabletop Simulator. Where you just load it up, it's all set up, you play, and then you just flip the table at the end and you're done. Like, it's just so much better. And that was that. That was it. That was it. I mean, Eldritch Horror takes a while to play. Moving on to role manging then. For Icons. I think this session of Icons was probably the easiest RPG session I've ever participated in. Which, I mean, probably many people don't think of sessions in terms of difficult or easy. But I tend to, because that's a big part of the appeal to me, is being challenged by something and trying to solve the challenge. So if we think of it in terms of that, of me having to solve a challenge, this was the easiest, because there really was nothing. I didn't solve anything. There was nothing to solve. We got another call. We got a call from like this Texas oil baron that this supervillain is trashing his oil rigs, and he wants us to stop it. So we find that he's gonna hit this oil rig next, and so we're gonna ambush him. And Studs can just teleport ahead of us. So Ziggy and I are in the helicopter. He teleports ahead of us because the character he's playing as just would never wait. And so when the supervillain gets to the oil rig, Studs is there, we're in the helicopter. Studs basically just blasts him. He tries to like flee, but Studs can just teleport ahead of him. So eventually he blasts him again. And then we show up finally. And instead of just killing him, we recruit him into our group. Covertly. And then we fly away in the helicopter. We report back to the oil baron. We get paid. And Thomas had been planning to like drop this bombshell that we had lied to, because we lied to this guy. We said, well, we took care of him. He exploded. We took care of him. He's done. He won't bother you anymore. When really we recruited him secretly so he can help us out in the future. And Thomas was all ready to drop this bombshell of like video camera footage from the oil rig of us talking to the guy and him joining our group, until I reminded him that he fled and Studs teleported after him, and they were miles away from the oil rig when we recruited him. So the video evidence perfectly supports our story, and he had forgotten about this. So we just got paid, and that was the end of it. And that was a session, pretty much. We had to like end early because Thomas had nothing else prepared, and we just handled it so easily and cleanly. Ziggy and I really did nothing. So yeah, I can't call it a great session. I mean, no offense. A great session for me involves overcoming some tremendous challenge. So this was not that. I mean, he's new to DMing. He's certainly, I'm still surprised he picked icons, because it's so hard to like plan for everyone's abilities and the disparity between abilities and, you know, all this sort of stuff. So it's tough, man. It's tough. So I told him, like, you know, ramp it up, man. Just throw like 4 supervillains at us at the same time, or, you know, kick our asses. Take the kids' gloves off. So we'll see how the next session goes. That's basically it. We're still planning to go ahead afterwards with D&D 4th edition. Seems like we could have a decently sized group, perhaps. Mert's brother potentially wants to join us again, Baron Dookie. Ziggy's wife maybe wants to join us. Because, you know, 4th edition, it's D&D with miniatures. I mean, everybody likes that. And I had pondered going with Frederick Zoller. Ziggy had okayed going back to a changeling vampire, which he had previously banned. But I know Studs really hates the character, really hates the whole concept of Frederick Zoller. I think Zoller, my playing of him has matured a little bit, but he's still, overall, I would say Zoller is still a little bit antithetical to the group concept. He's a character that can solve many problems by himself and is able to avoid combat himself most of the time, and that doesn't really mesh well with a group. So I think I'll probably just end up going with Artemis again, a Scion. OBS is definitely having problems. I don't know what's now. I've disconnected and reconnected, and yeah, I'm gonna try to end this quick because who knows what this stream looks like. So that's what's happening with role-playing. Let's finish then by talking about some horror movies. I did not watch nearly as many horror movies, new horror movies this week, partly between being busy, recording a bunch of Let's Plays, and partly rewatching some old horror movies that I don't really need to talk about. So this week I watched I watched 8 new horror films. So we will talk about them. First up is The Caller, 2011. Stars Rachel Lefebvre, Stephen Moyer, Ed Quinn, Louise Guzman. This I would call a hidden gem of horror. It's really not highly rated for some reason, and it's not a perfectly made film or anything like that. It's not particularly well acted or anything, but this is the type of horror movie I like to see, where it's just a really unique idea done pretty well. Basically, this girl moves into this new apartment, and she starts getting phone calls from an old woman she doesn't know. And she thinks it's like she's misdialing the number or something like that. But it's very, I mean, this is sort of a spoiler, I guess, but not really. But it's very quickly revealed to both of them that the old woman is calling from the past. Like, I don't know how many years in the past. 20 years in the past, something like that. And that's sort of like almost the plot for like some Hallmark drama film or something, or The Notebook. I don't know, but it doesn't help that the old woman is completely insane and quickly develops like this grudge and this hatred towards the main character. Because it's like, who wants to talk to an old lady? So, you know, she basically like brushes her off, and that pisses the old lady off. So the old lady starts pretty much just fucking with her from the past, because she moved into like the girl's apartment 20 years ago. So like if the old lady boards up a wall or something like that, it ends up being boarded up still in the present time. I mean, there's plot holes, certainly. You don't want to think about it too much, but it's really interesting, this sort of cat and mouse game between these two people 20 years apart. Because at first, the old lady has a lot of power. Because the girl can't really affect the past too much compared to the old lady affecting the future. Because it's scary, because you think about like how easy it would be to prevent someone from like being born. Like you have to do like, if you do like one little thing to like someone's parents before they're born, you change like one thing on a certain day when they might like procreate or, you know, whatever. You could easily prevent that specific person from being born, or something could be drastically different. It's crazy. But then, you know, it comes down to the girl having to figure out how to deal with this old lady 20 years in the past just through this phone call. So I think it's a really clever film. They could have obviously gone in all sorts of different directions with the plot and with the interactions between. They could have gone much farther. It could have been much more interesting, but I really enjoyed it. I think check it out. It's called The Caller. I watched the Breaking Bad movie. I had my parents come over. I made them dinner, and we watched the Breaking Bad movie together. I thought it was pretty great. It's definitely not a movie that really needed to be made. No one was really clamoring for like an epilogue, I guess, for Jesse. But for what they put out, it was an enjoyable movie for Breaking Bad fans, and we all three of us liked it. So, not a horror movie though. Next was Cannibal Holocaust. I had never seen this before. The very famous horror film from 1980. It's like the first found footage horror movie. This documentary crew goes in to check out some local cannibal tribes in the Amazon, and they go missing, and then their footage gets found, and it's pretty rough. And I had avoided this movie for years because there's footage of actual animals being killed by like natives. Like they apparently take a sea turtle out of the river and they like butcher it, and they kill a monkey and stuff. Like it's just like I don't need to see. Why would I want to see that? Why would I want to? What? I'm just trying to have some fun in October and watch some fun horror movies. I don't need to see that. But it's on the list here. I'm surprised because I don't think it's hidden in any way. Most people into horror know about Cannibal Holocaust. So I finally checked it out. And apparently you can get a version, you can watch versions where they just remove all the animal cruelty, which is pretty cool. But I had to sort of just like see it coming and then skip past it, which did end up working. I managed to avoid the sea turtle thing and the monkey death. They also kill a snake and a spider, but that doesn't bother me that much. I think I also skipped the pig kill as well. So I didn't watch the whole movie because I was skipping around a little bit. I watched maybe like an hour or so of the hour and a half runtime. It's well made. It's certainly way ahead of its time. I can absolutely see how it would have been very shocking back then. Definitely banned by plenty of governments and stuff. Nowadays, it's aside from the animal cruelty thing, just because that was real. There's nothing really that shocking. Like if you watch The Green Inferno, that's far more fucked up than Cannibal Holocaust. The thing I was surprised the most by though was I figured like a typical found footage horror movie about a documentary crew going in and they're just massacred. I thought of something like Green Inferno. But what I was surprised by was how much the documentary crew were just freaking assholes. Like they're really like terrible people, as shown in the footage that's recovered. How they were just like murdering natives and like staging things just for like shock value for the purpose of the film. I mean, it's all faked, but I mean, within the narrative, they were like staging shit. And they were like raping native women and like laughing at them. Like they're real assholes. And it's like, okay, I guess you don't feel too bad about what happens to them. But yeah, definitely ahead of its time, but I wouldn't call it a fun movie. I don't know if I could really call it a gem, and I really wouldn't rewatch it. But an important horror film, no doubt. Studs, Modern Warfare is I mean the campaign was great. Multiplayer I haven't really, OBS doesn't seem to like it. Carver from 2008 I started watching, and my Mang's movies sense just went off the charts right away. There's just certain things, just certain cinematic choices, camera choices, acting choices, just you can tell within the first minute if something's going to be a Mang's movie or not. And this was very high up on the Mang's movie sense. So apparently it's like super violent and fucked up and stuff like that. Like there's a scene where a guy gets his nuts put in a vice or I don't know. This is like just gore porn to the max in a Mang's movie style, and I don't need any of that. Did I want to run Sunken Temple? Yeah, later. Case 39. This is a much more mainstream horror film starring Renee Zellweger and Bradley Cooper from 2009. It's also got Ian McShane in it, who's awesome. It's not really horrific enough or interesting enough to be a gem. It's really just sort of non-offensive and mainstream, and it's just like, oh, so scary that this happens to Renee Zellweger, and oh god. I didn't not enjoy it, but there's really almost nothing special going on there. She plays like some social child services worker, and she rescues this child from this abusive family, but it turns out the child was really abusing them. Yeah. Cat's Eye from 1985, written by Stephen King. This is a anthology film of a bunch of horror stories written by Stephen King. It's got a young Drew Barrymore from her cocaine days. It's got James Woods, Robert Hayes, Alan King. It's it's not great. It follows this cat as the cat is sort of the wrapper of the film, as it goes through these different stories and sort of makes an appearance in each of the stories as it goes on this little adventure through a city. None of the stories are really horror in any way. This is not a horror movie. It's more of like a dark comedy, really. There are horror elements involved. The first story involves this guy, James Woods, who's trying to quit smoking. So he goes to this company that guarantees you'll quit smoking. And the way they do this is basically they keep constant surveillance on you. And if you ever smoke, they like kidnap your wife and electrically torture her. Like, stuff like that. And then they ramp up from there if you keep smoking. And it's just like, all right, there it is. And he messes up once and his wife gets electrically tortured, and then he doesn't mess up again. And then it sort of ends on this cliffhanger that they'll do anything. They'll do anything to guarantee their clients stick to their guns. Whatever. Second movie is about this guy who's stealing this rich dude's wife. So the rich dude kidnaps him and forces him to walk around on the ledge of this like penthouse building and stuff. And it's just like, oh god, the guy's not gonna fall because it would just be so lame. This is like 5 minutes into it. He's not gonna fall. It'd be really stupid. And of course he doesn't fall. So it's basically like the boring parts of Uncharted games where, oh, Nathan Drake might fall here. Oh, no, he got it. He's fine. He keeps going. Like, it's that for basically like 25 minutes. The third story is the best one because Drew Barrymore finds the cat. She adopts the cat. She loves the cat. But it turns out she's being like attacked at night by like this little goblin that sneaks into her room to steal her breath or some crazy shit. And so the climax of the film is this epic battle between the cat and the little goblin as they fight over the sleeping body of young Drew Barrymore. It's fucking mental, man. I swear to you. I would rewatch this just for this third segment because this cat kicks all sorts of fucking ass. And it has its own like theme song that sounds like out of like a fantasy RPG or something. It's wild. As the cat gets like thrown out of the house by the parents who don't understand, and it has to like race back up and break into the house through a window just to defend Drew Barrymore from the goblin. It's wild. Like, they should have just made the whole movie about this third segment because it stars a cat that kicks ass. I mean, the cat wins. There's nothing horrific going on, really, because the cat kicks ass. All right, so that's Cat's Eye. Chained. Chained from 2012, starring Vincent D'Onofrio, believe it or not. Very similar plot, I suppose, to Bereavement, in which this serial killer kidnaps this young boy and sort of grooms him to become a serial killer. But this is not like a schlocky, just violent score fest or anything like that. It's really about like looking at this messed up dude and sort of why he's so messed up, why he became a serial killer, why he exclusively attacks like young women, and this boy who sort of grows up like over the course of a decade dealing with this guy, with this serial killer, while he's chained up in his house, and he has to watch as all these young women get brought into the house, and he has to like clean up their bodies and stuff and bury them. Vincent D'Onofrio just does a fantastic job. I mean, he's just a tremendous actor. It's an interesting story, and I'm really not going to say much else about it. I just recommend it. It's called Chained. It looked really super generic, but I saw Vincent D'Onofrio starred in it, and I was like, this is going to be good, and it was good. The Changeling from 1980. This is on the border of something I'm willing to watch, and really, it felt much more like a 70s film than an 80s film. It stars George C. Scott, General Patton himself, as this composer who loses his wife and child, and he moves into this haunted house, just to live by himself, and the hauntings happen. It's a very slow movie. It's sort of partly a mystery film as he discovers like why this house is haunted and stuff. Yeah, in a lot of ways it feels sort of like an old gothic horror film. If you compare it to something like The Conjuring and how they systematically set up all these jump scares and the formulaic atmosphere and all that, it's a far cry from that. It's definitely a well-made film. It's just not something that you can watch while you're like doing something else. I think you sort of have to pay attention. You have to really get immersed in this old creepy house, and George C. Scott sort of going along with these hauntings. And there is some creepy shit. And there's some wild stuff at the climax, but it's a little long and a little slow for my current tastes, unfortunately. The Children, 2008. This is another one I would call a hidden horror gem. It's a British film. Basically, this family is on the little vacation in this remote home, and they're hanging out, and you've got a bunch of young children, and the young children start acting up and being a little strange, and then they become violent. It's got a pretty basic plot, but you're sort of left in bewilderment as to what is happening to these kids. And the horror sort of comes from the overall concept. As you have these parents that, I mean, they don't want to like beat the shit out of their own children just because they're acting up and they're like sick. But it's like, if you don't fucking defend yourself against your own child, they're gonna stab you in the throat or something. It's just overall pretty well made, even though it definitely, you can tell it's not a huge budget or anything like that. It's not a groundbreaking film. It's not gonna blow you away. But it's just an interesting little story, well told. And that's usually all I'm looking for in a horror movie. So, The Children, another little gem. Finally then, last one is Cold Prey. This is a Norwegian horror film, 2006. This is like the most bog standard, just run of the mill, nothing innovative whatsoever slasher film. But it doesn't do anything wrong. You know, like there's nothing really bad I can say about this movie at all, but there's nothing like great I can say about it either. It's just like it follows the slasher movie formula to a T. To a T. Follows all the tropes, all the formulas. But it does it all very competently and well, and it's well acted, and it's perfectly fine. I don't regret watching it at all. It was, like I said, it was fine. But I don't know if I'd ever rewatch it. And then, apparently, because there aren't that many great Norwegian horror films, it got a sequel, Cold Prey 2, which is also on this list. So that really intrigues me that they thought it was also another hidden horror gem. And it's like, do I really want to see more of the exact same? I mean, maybe the sequel they start to innovate. I don't know. It's also decently rated on IMDb, so it must be all right. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's absolutely fine. And then I guess they made a third one, and that's really dog shit. So I guess they went off the deep end. I'll probably watch the sequel, but I'm not expecting to be amazed. Yeah. So then I only have a handful of C's left. Then I'll be on to the D's. And then we have a lot of letters left. It's a long list, but I'm enjoying it so far. I enjoy the process. There's so many horror films that I just have never seen. And I consider myself a horror buff, so I gotta keep watching. Yeah. I guess that's about it. I don't know what this stream looks like. I don't know how much of what I've said got through. But just to recap, the 3 Portlands video coming out tomorrow. Got a video on the man who killed Halloween this week on Halloween. We've got more Outer Worlds and Disco Elysium coming your way. 2 fresh LPs. And that'll about do us. So my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. See you fine folks next week.